All right, welcome back everyone. This time we're going to be learning how to edit items that are already in the database. All right, basically to perform updates here and then to make sure we can see what we've changed. All right. So we have here essentially if we click on an item, it should bring up this little dialog here that should autofill with the current values. And then once we go ahead and click update, then that should be propagated, right? So if we change this to 99, we should see the change here. Okay. So updating the fields. We already know that we can add new ones. As far as editing existing ones, we're going to break it up really into a couple of steps here. So the first step is going to be to autofill the dialog, right? So that it takes the old value or the existing value and essentially gets that into this dialog right here, right? And to do that, we're going to use a method here called getScore, right? Again, going back to our CRUD here. Technically, while ultimately we want to do updating, getScore is really just part of reading. Only instead of reading the entire database, we're just going to be reading in a single item, right? So that we can display it in our dialog, right? So that's what's coming up next here is getScore. All right. So what's this going to be? getScore is going to look familiar. We're going to be passed in an ID. And from this, we're essentially going to ask for a projection, right? So sort of which columns do we want, and we'll take all of them. But here we also have to give it a selection, which is new, right? So some will know this as like a where clause. And essentially we're saying, hey, query, give me everything in the table where a certain condition is true, right? So where the ID is, the given one, right? The one that was passed in here. And so we can make that call to query. Adding this value that is now none null, okay? And that's going to return us the cursor. Now we don't want to go through it. Technically, it should just have one item in it, right? If we're querying by ID, it should only give us back the the row that has that ID. And so what we do here is we just do a quick super safe check here, make sure that it's not null, and then move it to the first of one. And then we're gonna get the score from the cursor. Again, our ultimate goal is to return this score, the model object. So we're going to do this. So it's going to require another helper method. So this getScore from cursor, you can think about this as being kind of the inverse of the one where we took a score and we got a content values when we were adding. So this one here is going to go the other direction. It's going to give us something from the database, in this case the cursor, and it's going to turn around and return a score, right? So we'll come back to that guy in a minute. Let's go ahead and implement the first one, the getScore. Okay. So back in my adapter, right? So add score, get content value, score cursor right here. Let's go ahead and write this method. So score, getScore, given an ID. All right, and what we need is this projection here, right? So we'll start off with this guy. So these are my columns essentially, and this is going to be everything. So the ID, the name, and the score. We will take all of them. Then we're going to have a selection. And the selection is going to be essentially everything where the ID equals, so we hard code an equal sign here, the ID that was passed into us. Okay, so something like that. Let's make our query. So I'm going to say, hey database, if you would, please give me back everything here. So my table name, my columns are the projection, selection is the selection, that's good. Selection arguments are null, grouping by, null, having, null, order by, null. All right, so that's doing our query, and that should return us a cursor. All right, so this guy right here. So let's put in these conditions here. So as long as the cursor isn't null and I'm going to say, hey cursor, would you please move to the first? If the cursor were empty, right, so if there were nothing with that ID there, then it would return false. So I'll use that. This is both going to move me to the first thing and tell me whether it's successful. So if it is successful, what I want to do is return the result of get score from cursor. Okay. And otherwise, I can just go ahead and return null. There's nothing there that I could do if it wasn't in the database. Okay. So let's stub in this helper method here. So so again, this is a little bit different. Before I had get scores cursor. All right, so that was actually getting a cursor. This is getting a single score from a cursor. All right, so let's see. Going back to this guy, let's see what's going on here. We want to create a new score, return it. We of course need to set the ID, the name, and the score. So how are we going to do this? So we're going to use a couple of helpers here, or built-in methods that you can operate on cursors. Cursors let you do things, right? They let you to get fields out of the row that you're currently pointing at, right? So there's different methods here for getting different types, and this is probably going to be reminiscent for the for what we did way back with intent and extras, right? So the getter methods had types. But then what we need to pass in is we need to pass in the column index. Now, you might think, well, column index, maybe that's just 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And we could probably get away with that, right? I mean, if you wanted the ID, that's probably column 0, and you could put in a 0 here. But the better way to do it is to ask the database for which column each of the keys are in. And the way that you do that is you use this method right here, get column index or throw, that takes a key and just simply returns the actual column index, which is just an integer that's required by these different getter methods to get different columns out of that single row. Okay, so it looks pretty complicated, but we're just doing good programming practice here, doing the right thing. So let's go ahead and enter this guy. So I'm going to make a score. This is a brand new one that I'm creating out of the cursor. And then for each thing in here, I need to set its value, right? So set an ID. Now let's see. Let's do this right here. Get score from cursor. I need to pass in the cursor, and this guy, I need the cursor here. So the ID is going to be c.get long. Okay, for this guy here, and then we're going to get the column index. So again, that's going to be c.get column index or throw, right? And then we need to give it the name of that column, which is going to be the ID. So like so. And then I'm going to do something almost identical for the other two. So you've set the ID. Now go ahead and set the name. All right. Where are we going to get the name from? So we're going to be getting a string out of this out of the cursor, and get string requires the column index. So I'm going to ask this guy, give me the column index. Oops, I wanted the other version. It's a little bit more efficient. Column index or throw. So for my name key, and we'll do the same thing for the score. Emulator comes up, and let's go ahead and let's do an edit score. So I want a Bob here, and it threw me a null pointer exception. Okay, let's take a peek, and let's see what we got here. Null pointer exception, scores list activity line 304. Let's take a peek there. So line 304. So name text selected score. Let's see. So let's see. One of these guys is null. Selected score. Where did that guy come from? selected score. Oh, that should be the get score. I totally forgot to do that. So get score here. Yep, absolutely. Get score, what we need to do is, and it's returning null, so no surprise on the null pointer exception. Let's go ahead and call the method that we just wrote. So mScoreAdapter dot get score, and we're just passing along the ID that was written. So the starting code that you have is taking care of passing along IDs and all that stuff, so you do not have to worry about that. All right, let's try this again. So Bob was 70. There we go, and it auto populates. Looks great. Of course, you know, if I update this here, certainly not going to do any update here. I haven't written any of that logic to actually update what's in the database. There we go. Okay, so great. So we did that, and we'll continue on. All right. So that's the first step. First step was you know, sort of populating this dialog. The second step, of course, is to take this new value and get it over into the database. And we're going to do that using the update score method. Back in my CRUD, we saw that we wrote the get score. All right, took care of that. So now we're going on to update score and edit score. Right. So update score is a method that we're going to write, and edit score is one that we're going to update in our activity. What do those guys look like? All right. So update score is one that I think you like. All right. So update score is going to be able to recycle some code here. So given a score, all right, we're actually going to go ahead and get our content values again, like we did when we added. All right, and that'll give us a row, and then we're going to make a selection here. All right. So so like that, and then we're just going to call update on our database with the name of the table, and then the row that we want to update, and then the rows that we want to replace, right? It actually has the ability to update several rows at once, but ours should be unique, again, because we're using unique IDs here. Okay. So let's write update score. A data adapter. Public method. We can make this guy here void. Update score. Takes a score. All right, and we will go ahead and get a content values from this guy. Row is going to be get content values from a score. And then we will call on our database. We'll say do an update if you would. And you'll notice that it only has one option right here. So the table, the values that we want, that's our row parameter. Where clause, whoops, we forgot to write that guy, so we'll leave that as is for now. And then where arguments we'll make null. Okay. So our where clause. We can have this here to be, oops. We want to update the one that has a key, an ID that is equal to the ID of the thing that I am updating. So s.getID. Like that. And for this to work, we're going to have to go back to the activity and also update that guy as well. So in the edit score here, you'll see that what was happening here before was that we were passed in a score, and there was a selected ID, and then we're basically taking and updating that selected score. We're going to do things a little bit differently here, so I'm just going to comment these guys out. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the score that we're passed in, and we're going to update its ID to be the selected ID field. The dialog is going to be setting that, so again, we don't have to worry about that. And then in my score data adapter, I'm going to be calling the one that we just wrote here, update score, and that's going to take a score. So we'll just have it take care of that. And then I'm going to want to update my cursor adapter here so that we can see the update immediately. So we're going to call change cursor, and we're going to ask our data adapter to give us a cursor. Right, so we'll ask for it to get the cursor. Emulator launched, so let's click on Bob here. Let's try changing his score to 78, do an update, and Bob's score updates. All right, let's try another one. So the other way that we can update is do a long press. So Sue, let's go ahead and edit her score, and auto-populates, and then Sue will say get an 83, and we'll do an update. All right, that looks great. I guess it almost looks great. I'm just realizing here the order of these buttons I think doesn't follow Android spec for dialogue, so that's something we'll fix. We'll do a better job when we do it in the lab, I guess. All right. So looks good. Otherwise, so getting caught up here. So the edits actually do persist now, right? So we're updating our database. Life is good. We'll see you back for our last very short lesson, which is going to be how to delete things from the database.